There is no doubt it's very difficult to deal with the United States President Donald Trump. The man is irrational and impulsive. He will say things one day and then completely change them the next. That's why we don't know whether we're going to get hit in Canada with 25% tariffs on all of our goods. Because some days he mentions it, some days he doesn't, some days he says it'll be February the 1st, and other days people in his administration say it'll be April the 1st at the earliest. I don't think he knows. And I think he likes to keep things boiling, to keep us off guard, so that we'll make mistakes that lead to him getting a better deal for the United States. So is it really difficult to deal with this irrational and impulsive man? Of course it is. But it's got to be just as difficult for the Americans to deal with Canada. Take a look at the mess that we are in right now in this country because of the Liberal Party. Justin Trudeau should have left months ago. Everyone but Justin Trudeau knew that. He decides to leave, though, at the very worst time in these trade negotiations. The very worst time. Then he goes and he has Parliament prorogued so that the opposition cannot hold the government to account in the House of Commons. The government is simply free to do whatever it wants without any kind of scrutiny by the elected representatives who come from opposition ridings. It's unconscionable at a time of national crisis that Parliament is not sitting and that the Prime Minister and his ministers do not have to be accountable. And why is Parliament prorogued right now? Because the Prime Minister and his ministers are all caught up in the internal Liberal leadership race. The whole of the country's business is put on hold until the end of March, late March, simply because the Liberals have to find a new leader. That is so selfish, so self-serving as to be appalling. And then look at the mess they've left us in just with their policies. Because we cannot have new pipelines in Canada, we are stuck selling our oil and gas to the Americans. 97% of our export oil goes to the United States. Now, that has changed a bit since May of 2024 with the opening of the Trans Mountain expansion of the pipeline that goes from Edmonton out to the West Coast near Burnaby. We're now selling more to Asia, more to Korea, more to China. But imagine what would happen if we had Northern Gateway open 2 or 3 or 5 years ago. Imagine what would happen if we had Energy East from Alberta through to New Brunswick open 2 or 3 years ago. We would be able to make up some of the damage from Trump's tariffs by selling our oil to Europe and to Asia rather than to the Americans. But because the Liberals wanted to look like the ultimate environmentalists, they wanted to appease Greta Thunberg, we now have to sell our oil strictly to the Americans, and we are over, pardon the pun, a barrel with them, thanks to Liberal short-sightedness. It's great. In the last couple of days, the BC Indigenous nations that originally opposed Northern Gateway have said, hey, maybe it's time to give this a rethink. Maybe what we need is another pipeline to give us new markets. That's terrific. I want to wait to hear from Quebec. Quebec were the obstacles to Energy East, not New Brunswick, not Ontario, not any of the other provinces or states it had to pass through. Just Quebec. I want to hear Quebec say, hey, maybe we should rethink that Energy East thing too. Those would be good. But because of Liberal policies for the last 9 years, and now the Liberals holding the country hostage while they gaze at their own navels to try and find a new leader, Canada is as vulnerable as ever it has been to Donald Trump's threats. Thank you, Justin Trudeau. Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, is right. An election cannot come soon enough. For Post Media, I'm Lorne Gunter.